It's not throughout the night, but the flurry of snowflakes keys their graceful what's called the dawning of the new day. I stretched, cat-like, with the advent of the coming down, so my spine cracked. Then, in what was fast becoming routine, it's so easy to fall into roots, even after 2 days. I curled up even deeper beneath my covers, trying jealously to cling to whatever sliver's form I could. We humans are creatures of habit. So, for so many of us, from all walks of life, desire freedom, the surely teenager cloistered within a classroom, the businessman toiling away side of an office, the unhappy couple doomed to further unhappiness by their fears of loneliness, we all, in the end, seem to seek our patterns. Out patterns. We humans crave order, and travel the world only so we may put everything into its proper place. We classify our flora and fauna, give names to all the stars we see, and jot everything down in jot down everything in atlases, calendars, and endless reports. Even the heart of wonder, stricken by wanderlust, will experience pangs of homesickness from time to time. Humans are a contradictory bunch. We say we hate routine, but when routine gives way to anarchy, we flounder with our newfound freedom. We can cope without structure. Give us too much to think about and too much free time to think about it in, and we start to sink beneath the wave of our own imaginations. You would think I, being an author, would be even more flightly and impetuous than most, and maybe I was in my youth. The younger Eiji, who'd taken Sachiko to see the fireworks and kiss her beneath the star sky, was filled with flights of fancy. I'm not like that nowadays. In my middle age, I've grown to love structure. It comforts me. I prefer familiar rhythm like the clicking of a typewriter's keys or the beating of my own heart. I prefer familiar tastes like Sachiko's miso soup. But if I like order so very much, why did I go to such extremes to disturb my marital life? A life that to any bystander would seem perfectly idyllic? I didn't know. I still don't know. It was too early in the morning for such musings, and it was much too cold. And so, like any weak man who takes solace in dreams, I squeezed my eyelids together and slept. When Ray arrived to deliver my breakfast, I was dressed and already waiting. I didn't want it to seem like I'd been waiting for her, so I hid my anthology of old poems in my hands, but that's precisely what I was doing. When Rico entered, slamming the wooden door aside to grant her entry, I lifted my head and offered her a smile. She didn't smile back. The young girl seemed to stagger beneath the weight of the tray, for my breakfast was a rather humble affair. White rice, pickles, and miso soup. I wondered if it was as good as the miso soup Sachiko made. I wondered still more at Reiko's welfare, and why it was that she looked so haggard and worn, her expression so morose and melancholy. She looked as though she had the weight of the entire world on her shoulders. "Are you alright?" I asked her, foregoing a more typical reading. "I'm fine," she said, for she didn't sound fine. Really? Really? It was the really appended at the end, I think, that hammered home, but how not fine she was despite her pretenses. Anybody who is fine really doesn't need to protest their finances. Finances is a quality that should be evident simply by looking at one's face. Nothing about Reiko in that moment as she crossed the time floor with uncertain steps was fine. The sad thing was, I wasn't sure what to do. Do you want me to take your tray? I asked her, because it was the only way I could think of aiding her. Reiko, however, shook her head. I had expected as much. It's fine. This is my job. But if it's too heavy for you... Like I said, it's fine, Reiko reinstated. There it was again, that word. Fine. If she'd been a better actress, maybe she would have smiled to assuage me of my words, but her face was far too earnest. It isn't heavy, really. And Mother would get mad at me for asking guests to serve themselves. It would be improper. The mere mention of her mother made Reiko wince. I'd had my suspicions already, of course, but that confirmed it. Miss Shirley was the one to blame for Reiko's poor moods. It seemed to be a delicate issue, however, personal matters between families often are, and I wasn't sure how to broach it. It wouldn't have seemed right to launch an inquiry, particularly not when Reiko was signing my breakfast on the table with a mother of please enjoy. I could talk to Reiko, not like that, not when she was in the middle of serving me. I thought perhaps she would have answered my inquiries, but had I made them. But she would have answered them out of a sense of duty because she didn't want to upset her guests. Not because she genuinely wanted to tell me. The thought of manipulating her in such a way made me feel queasy. I shook my head. There was no manner for equals to converse. I couldn't be Reiko's equal because she wouldn't let me, not like she had yesterday. I told myself I'd have to wait for another opportunity when she let her guard down. The only question was when. As it transpired, I didn't need to wait all that long after all. I left the Azamin at around 9 o'clock. I had finished my breakfast. The miso soup was not as good as Chico's, which would have made her happy, and whiled away a few hours with my thoughts. I can't recall what it was I was thinking about, so I doubt it was particularly interesting, but sometimes it's nice to allow your consciousness to drift. It was very easy to drift in the Azamin, surrounded by the trees and mountains and all the beautiful unblemished snow. Maybe I had adapted the mentality of a snowflake myself, caught in a breeze, willing to land wherever I fell. God damn it. I had brought a notebook with me, to be used whenever my creative muse struck, but nothing I had written during my trip could be salvaged. It was hard to write about snow. I realized when so much had already been said on the topic. But the snow wasn't all I wrote about. Lost in a swirling haze of sentiment, my pen seemed to move of its own volition, sketching out shapes with unsteady words. Black hair, brown eyes, that tiny pinprick of a beauty mark just below her left eye. And so it was, as I left the confines of the Azamin, that I happened quite by chance to come across the object of my continued curiosity. Reiko was walking through the snow, her arms moving back and forth by her sides like a little soldier's, her dark hair flutter behind her like a cape, and her eyes were downcast. She was holding a shovel in one hand, gripping it tightly. She seemed so diminutive, especially when contrasted with the vast, seemingly endless snowscape that part of me wanted to scoop her up into my arms and hold her. That was a silly thought, for I wasn't young enough to act on my impulses without fearing retribution. Instead, I called out to Reiko genially and offered her a wave. Are you busy, Reiko? She jumped at my address, like she had been rudely awoken from a dream, and lifted her head. When she saw it was me, however, her shoulders relaxed. I could visibly see the tension leaving her body, like water draining from a bowl of boiled rice. She seemed to be in better spirits than she had at breakfast, for she was still jumpy. Nevertheless, she responded to my question. "Oh, so you're checking the hot springs," she said. "Mother wanted me to shovel snow, as you can probably tell." "So, you weren't out burying corpses?" Reiko frowned. "I know our inn has a bad reputation, but it isn't that bad, is it? What on earth was Yosuke telling you?" I laughed. Sorry, it was just a joke. Not a very one, for I know. "No, it's alright," said Reiko, brushing a few stray strands of hair behind one ear with her free hand. I like jokes, even ones that aren't very funny. It can be so horribly gloomy around here. I imagine your mother wouldn't appreciate it. Mother doesn't appreciate a lot. That's part of the problem. Reiko sighed, distant and dreamy, and clutched the shovel to her chest. But I shouldn't speak ill of her, she said after a pause. Mother just wants the aim to be a success. I don't know if she picked a good location, I said gently. Not that she was the one who chose it, I suppose. No. This inn has been here for, I don't know, centuries probably. If Miss Kakish wants her business to be successful, perhaps she should consider relocating, I asked. Offered just a casual air such as not want to sound like a snob. I don't know anything about business myself, being a writer. Knowing it wasn't really in my place to comment, I tried to tiptoe around the subject matter. Fortunately, Reiko didn't seem to mind my impertinence. She was a lot more at her ease than she had been earlier, made what clothes were outside, and a cool breeze had helped clear her head. Mother would never relocate. It wouldn't happen, she said firmly. Is it because of sentimental reasons? She must have loved your father a lot. Reiko pondered. I know about that. Father died when I was very young. I don't remember much about him. Reiko didn't seem too upset as she relayed these facts. She presented the information in quite a distant manner, like a butcher might procure a joint of meat. It was like she didn't suffer about her father because she had hardly known him. It's hard to feel lost if we don't really know what it is when we have lost in the first place. True. I suppose Mother must have loved him strongly, but I don't think she would stay in the scene for the sake of romance. No? No, she isn't the heroines in your poems, said Reiko with a small smile. She doesn't have the romantic bone in her body. Or maybe she's just hiding it. I don't disbelieve it. I think Mother stays here out of stubbornness, more than anything else, because the villagers think the inn will fail and she wants to prove them wrong. Well, stubbornness can be a boon. Reiko nodded. It's admirable. Mother is an admirable woman. She works very hard. I just wish. But she broke off, and I never discovered what it was that she wished. It didn't matter. Being a writer, I could imagine what she wanted to say well enough. I'm sorry, said Reiko, blushing. Listen to me prattling on about these things. I'm sure you're very busy. Yeah, with nothing. I'm not busy. I was just going to go for a walk. Oh, Reiko's eyes lit up. Are you trying to get inspiration for a new poem? Something like that, I said. Can you recommend any particularly good places? I went for a walk yesterday, but I didn't know where to go. I just ended up wandering. Wandering can be fun too. There's a lot to see out here. It's mostly snow and hills, of course, but it's very pretty. It is, but I imagine one gets bored of these sights quite quickly. After all these years, maybe, Reiko concealed with a small smile. But you've only lived here for 2 days. You had no right to have jaded just yet. I laughed, as Reiko admonished me, waving one finger like a nagging housewife. At least this was how I imagined a nagging housewife might act. Because Sachiko had never nagged me once in her whole life. I think she'd sooner iron her hands than wag a finger at me, even in playful jest. The display was rather charming, perhaps because it was so novel. Alright, you make a good point. I'm not jaded about the scenery, really. I should hope that, being a writer, you should take more pleasure in all this snow than most. I do indeed, but I won't be staying here very long. As such, I want to know about the best sites. I'm a paying customer, and you shouldn't keep them to yourself. Okay, said Reiko, drawing out her syllables. Thank you for using your stages against me. I know where I stand now. But I don't think she was really bothered. If she was, she wouldn't have been smiling so. As for sights, there isn't much around here in walking distance, but there's a small shrine. A shrine covered in snow? It's not a big shrine, and it's kind of run down, but I go there when I want to be alone sometimes. It's peaceful. I think it's the kind of place that deserves a poem or two written about it, but nobody will write any poems because nobody knows it exists. There are a lot of places like that in the world, I paused, pondering. A lot of people too. Reiko smiled, cheeks flushed, and dipped her head like I had said something scandalous.
I would be honored if you wrote a poem about that shrine. It's a special place for me. I want to share it with the world.
How altruistic.
Hehe, I know it must sound silly, dreaming out, reaching the world when I live in a place like this.
Reiko threw out her arms, as if to demonstrate how very barren and empty the landscape that constituted her world was. She was still holding the shovel, the sharp edge winked in the pale sunlight. I don't think it's silly, I said softly. She blinked.
No?
No, this is the whole point of writing, to share things with the other people, to give them your innermost thoughts and feelings, your heart, if you will, to try and make them understand.
Oh, that sounds so beautiful.
I shook my head. It's cliché.
But cliché can be beautiful too.
The critics would have turned their noses up at such a simple viewpoint, but as I watched Reiko, I almost started to reconsider. Maybe clichés could be beautiful if only you gave them a chance.
I can give you directions to the shrine, but think about it, it might be a bit of hard to find,
said Reiko, coy now, as she dug the tip of her wooden sandal against the snow.
I could always accompany you if you want.
I don't want her company very much, so much. Oh, it was almost alarming. How had this little girl, as skin as the bleached white sorry bones from yesterday, grown to mean so much to me in such a short space out of time? But she had. I had dreamed of her at night, and had been thinking of her all day. So I tried to write about the snow and the stillness and purity and innocence of it all. My pen invariably started to compose odes to Reiko. But despite my emotions wagging war inside my breast, I tried to act cool, aided perhaps by the frosty weather. Are you sure that's alright? Shouldn't you be shoveling?
Oh, I already finished,
Reiko urged me.
But what about your mother?
Won't she mind?
She probably will mind, but she minds about everything besides it's all part of the job. Like you said, I'm sure you can hang around, it's still warm. And anyway,
Reiko with her feet still shifting.
I think I need a change of scenery, just for a little while.
You want me to spirit you away?
Oh, wait.
Reiko lifted her head. Her eyes were big and round and imploring, like bottomless pits.
Please, take me far, far away from here. So far I never have to look back.
Her words were a breathless, desperate plea. If I could have granted her wish, I would have done so in a heartbeat. Maybe you can. I mean, no you can't, you have a wife. Unless you would adopt Reiko as a daughter. Or maybe you could take one of your sons to that place and maybe he would fall for Reiko or Reiko would fall for him and boom! She's your daughter-in-law, that's how you call it, I think. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, I think I did not read that. Fuck. There is no history, right? God damn it. And considering my scroll doesn't work, I can't go back. God damn it, Lynx, you messed up. Alright, she led me through the snow-covered forest confidently, at a brisk pace, offset slightly by confines of her kimono. Buoyed, I think, by her exodus from the stifling Asami Inn, she grew more and more animated the further away we got. Soon she began talking to me in earnest, her face overflowing with smiles. She paused every once in a while to point various facts about the flora and fauna. Here a call for Robin, and over there a cluster of delicate snowdrops with heavy hanging heads. Reiko told me about the time she had played in the forest as a child, building wonky snowmen until her hands were wrapped red raw, and how once she had lost a sandal in a snowdrift and never found it again. She had tried to persuade her mother, saying a wicked mountain witch had stolen the way, but her mother had been less than impressed and sent her to bed without any supper. Reiko told me about the nearby village of Higashikawa, how pretty all the roofs looked when they were covered in snow, and how happy she used to be as a child when her mother took her on trips there to buy new clothes or sweets or hair ribbons. Reiko told me at night, when the wind whistled through the trees and she was lying with her foot on, she sometimes thought there were ghosts roaming around these woods. She didn't know why, her imaginations hadn't extended that far. It didn't there. The ghosts were just watching. I guess that's good, right? They were just watching. I think at least. Waiting. Their eyes were empty and hollow, like holes cut out of a sheet. As Reiko talked and talked, I found myself growing warmer and warmer, for truthfully the air was still bitterly cold. That didn't seem to matter when I was with Reiko. Nothing mattered except her. Another cliché, but one that had never been more apt. After 15 minutes walking and talking, my lovely tour guide found puffs, her stories faltering on the tip of her tongue. We had finally arrived at our destination. Oh, it's been such a long while, Reiko said softly, her tones reverent. I've been hundreds of times already, but I always forget. And her voice trailed away, because words couldn't explain how she felt at this moment. Words couldn't explain how I felt either. The shrine really was beautiful. It was a small, humble affair tucked away in the corner of the forest where the trees were thick and snow lay thicker. There were no endless stone steps, no pagodas, no pomp, no fanfare at all. The shrine itself consisted of wooden offerings box, and that was it. The box was dusted with white, powdery snow, as were the trees about it. Naturally, the box was empty. I doubted anybody would wend their way through the trees to offer anything to a small shrine like this. I wasn't even sure which god this shrine was devoted to. It was probably some local spirit from centuries gone by, whose name nobody had bothered to remember. Certainly, nobody had remembered to tend to the shrine. The offering box seemed to be rotting away even as I stood there, and the ground was overgrown with thick coils of tree roots and broken branches. Still, the shrine was beautiful. I know it isn't much to look at, said Reiko, suddenly self-conscious. I'm sorry if it's a bit of a disappointment. I hope I didn't get your hopes up. No, it's fine, I said quick to reassure her. I like it. I do. But, Reiko fiddled with her fingers, hooking and unhooking them at the front. It was stupid, really, to ask you to write a poem about here of all places. You shouldn't waste your time sounding so banal. Oh, please. I started my eyes, for a soft flash of embarrassed happiness rose to my cheeks. Regardless, my time is worth no more than anyone else's. You're just being honest. I think your poems are lovely. The critics said otherwise. Well, they're silly. You should listen to critics. Isn't criticizing their job? I suppose. They should be thanking you, really, said Reiko lightly with my small smile. If people like you didn't create works of art for them to tear apart, they wouldn't get paid. There are glitches who profit off your hard work. They couldn't exist without you. A symbiotic relationship, I pondered. I hadn't thought of it like that before. Well, sometimes I have good ideas. Not like going to the shrine, of course, but other ideas. Better ones, occasionally, maybe? She asked, looking at me for... what? Clarification? If so, I was only too happy to give it. You have very good ideas, and don't worry about that. Sorry, about the shrine, I'm glad you took me here. But I don't even know when this shrine was built or why. Most of the people in Hagishikawa don't even know it exists. That makes it even more special. How does it? Doesn't that make it meaningless? Nothing is meaningless in this world. If we don't know the meaning of something, we can make up its meaning by ourselves. Reiko gasped. Is it really okay to do that? I don't see why not. We repurpose things from the past all the time. It stops them becoming defunct.
I don't have a right to repurpose anything. I mean, I'm not very smart.
You're smart enough. I smiled sheepishly, scratching my cheek with one finger. I know about your praise of my poetry because it doesn't deserve it, but other than that, I'd say you're rather intelligent. If only she didn't like that awful poem about the fireworks. Why did everybody like that poem so much? I had liked it too when I had first written it, but I had changed a lot since then. The words on the paper, however, had stayed the same. My own boyish emotions, running far ahead of me, had been committed to print for everyone to read. Everyone who cared to buy a copy of my anthology from their nearest bookstore, that is. I wonder if they stocked it in the remote Higashikawa. Probably not. It wasn't that popular.
I guess it's a bit selfish that I took you here,
said Reiko quietly, her brown eyes fixed in the small shrine.
I don't know anything about it, not really, but I have a lot of memories of this place. You probably think my feelings are shallow, but...
Not at all! If it's important, it's important. The reason why doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I stumbled upon this place by accident when I was 6 or 7. I was out playing in the forest, and then I got lost and somehow ended up here.
Like you were drawn.
That's it,
said Reiko, her eyes lighting up with realization.
That's exactly it! Like my body wasn't my own, and it was controlled by some kind of higher power.
A spirit?
Maybe.
Reiko nodded her head seriously, as for she would quite like to believe in spirits and not in pure dumb luck. I don't blame her, I prefer the romantic option too.
Maybe it was the spirit of the shrine, whoever it is. Maybe they called me to... they called to me, said Reiko.
I wouldn't blame if they did, I said. It must be lonely out here with no visitors, no offerings, and nobody to take care of you.
I wonder that's why the shrine called out to me then. It must have sensed that we're kindred spirits.
Reiko, I looked down at her, at the crown with her dark head, and frowned. Were you lonely?
Horribly lonely. I had a very isolated childhood.
Compared to me, you're still a child, you know.
And I'm still lonely.
She said it simply, as for it was a fact. Like the sky is blue and the snow melts come springtime, Kakuchi Reiko was fated to be lonely. That was just how life went. But it was so wrong. Why should she have been resolved to live such a sad life? Why wouldn't she try to fight back? Maybe she had tried to fight once upon a time, but fighting had been too hard, too exhausting, and it hadn't paid off. Few things in life do. Not everybody can be as lucky as I.
After I found about this place, I came here a lot, said Reiko. Whenever mother scolded me, which was often, I would run away and hide here. It became a second home, I suppose, a home away from home.
Reiko glanced upwards, her big brown eyes taking in all the trees. They were snow-laden skeletons, large and immovable, that seemed to have been here since the dawn of time.
I wonder if I help the trees grow. I cried here often enough.
She broke off, giggling shyly.
But that's a bit embarrassing.
I swallowed. I want to hug her so badly it was painful. I want to pull her close and run my hands through her hair and tell her she never had to feel lonely or shed tears ever again. But those were all lies. I was old enough now, speaking such fanciful words so carelessly would only hurt a lonely, isolated soul like Reiko. She would believe me too, really, because she wanted so desperately to believe in someone, and I would lend her for a few brief moments, because what man doesn't like playing Prince Charming? True. But that was all it would and ever could be. A fleeting affair like the falling snow. I couldn't do that to Reiko. I didn't want to hurt her. So I couldn't lie to her. All I could do was try to understand how she felt. Did your mother scold you a lot? I asked her softly.
She did! She still does, but I can't get away as easy as I could before. I have too many responsibilities now.
What does she scold you about?
Oh, all kind of things. And Reiko shrugged. Split ends, their fingernails, if I speak out of turn, if I talk loudly, if I don't talk at all, if I oversleep in the mornings, if I don't beat the photons properly. Sometimes I think she scolds because I breathe incorrectly. Reiko shifted, perhaps guiltily, and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She was mad at me yesterday, actually. She said I spent too long in your room. She was suspicious. I said intelligently because there was nothing else to say. I'd wonder whether this was the reason Reiko had been so jumpy that morning. I felt like some kind of criminal involved in a vile plot to steal away Reiko's innocence. Wouldn't do that. I'm sorry if I got you in trouble, I said, bowing my head. I should have known better. No, it's fine. It's not fault. I knew she would be angry if she found out, but I couldn't help myself. It's been such a long time since somebody spoke to me like a real human being and asked about my opinions that I couldn't help myself. You don't dare to talk to people often, I asked, so I already knew the answer. The deserted always of the Asami Inn made that quite apparent. I sometimes speak to the guests, said Reiko after a pause. Or they speak to me. The men mostly. They think I'm pretty. Some of them. They would think I was less pretty if I spoke to them about poetry, I think. And what about school? I pressed. Have you ever gone to school? She shook her head. Then your school is in Higashikawa. And that's too far away. But there are taxis. What about Yosuke? He could drive you. Mother can't afford to let me go. There aren't enough staff at the Asami as this. She needs me. That's what she tells me. She needs me. And it's probably too late to worry about my education away. I'll never be a smart girl. All I can do is carry trays and shovel snow. I'm sure that's not true. No, it isn't. I can wash pots too. Reiko's tone was so unmistakably bitter it hurt. It didn't seem right that such a young girl should sound so cynical. Not when she responded to my poem, my silly stupid sentimental poem, with such wonder. A girl who took gush about my early efforts at poetry was the girl who should have consigned herself to a life of servile misery. She deserved better than that. She deserved much, much better than me. She deserved a man who could write better poetry. I suppose living like this isn't too bad. There are people who have it worse. I have a roof to sleep under and food to eat, and I have my mother. She can be quite strict, yeah, but she's never hit me at least. It's something. I don't know how she was trying to convince me, or herself. Well, I might not be qualified to comment on the situation, but it sounds like your mother expects a lot from me. She expects too much, I think, but I can tell her that. She won't listen. She never listens. Reiko's brow creased. She says she pushes me because she loves me. But what do you think? Oh, I don't doubt that. I know she loves me. It's because she loves me that she feels so much. If she didn't care, she wouldn't bother, and I suppose that makes me happy, but... Reiko began to fiddle with her sleeves of her kimono, sadly anxious. Seeing her so wound up made me feel wound up too, and I couldn't suppress a spike of intense dislike I felt towards Miss Kyuchi. How could she do such a thing to her own daughter? Reiko was so much happier, her face bright and warm and cheerful when her mother wasn't around. When she'd be talking to me about poetry the previous day, or when the two of us had been walking through the forest, she'd been like a different girl. A happy girl. As soon as the topic of her mother came up, however, her face clouded over, and she fell in one on herself, all awkward elbows, hunched up shoulders. It was a sorry sight to behold indeed. I know mother loves me, but I wish she didn't love me quite so intensely. It's a lot of pressure to deal with. I looked at Reiko with pity, for I knew she didn't want my pity. It wouldn't help. But I couldn't stop myself. I could stop my heart hurting for this poor, lost little girl. If one's love for children is measured by how much you scold them, Sachiko and I will be cruelest parents in the world, I said lightly, trying to joke. Your children must be very lucky then, said Reiko sadly, her eyes downcast. I wish I had a father like you. I fear I would bore you very quickly. Never, said Reiko emphatically, shaking her head. We could go on walks, and you could show me your writing, and we could... I don't know, be happy together, I suppose. You're not happy with your mother? I love her a lot, and she loves me, but... loving somebody isn't always enough. That's right. There needs to be something more. Love is no good if you don't really like the other person. You don't like your mother? You don't like your mother? Ah, that's it. That's what I mean, said Reiko, shaking her head. I do love my mother. I respect her, and she's very clever, you know. Very, very clever, strong too, and practical, sensible, so I love her, and she loves me, but I don't know if she likes me.
Why wouldn't she like you?
What was there about Reiko dislike? I couldn't think of anything. I'm too flighty and stubborn and willful maybe, I don't know.
Reiko frowned. I used to snap back at her and we would argue and I would run off.
Oh, but that made her sad and it made me sad, so I stopped doing that. I would accept now, and I tried to not run away, but...
Reiko looked about the shrine, at the tumble-down box of rings and the overgrown trees. Once upon a time, devotees of Shintoism had built this shrine in the forest to honor their gods. They would have lit candles and given money and stood in reverent prayer. Once upon a time, this shrine had meant something. It had a purpose, a reason to exist in this world. Now everybody had forgotten what its purpose was. It had been swallowed up by trees and smothered in snow. It was a fitting place for Reiko then. A lonely place for a lonely girl.
Coming back here makes me remember those times. I used to dream of running away a lot, said Reiko, looking up at me from beneath her eyelashes. Of packing up my belongings, not that I have many belongings, and fleeing and going, oh I don't know, somewhere far, far away, much further than Higashikawa.
She sighed.
But I was far too young, and I didn't have any money, and I would have felt too guilty anyway. How could I run away when my mother loves me so much? It would break her heart. She doesn't have anyone else left.
But what about you, Reiko? Do you have anyone?
I'd say those words. I couldn't. That would only have made her sadder, and I didn't want that.
Instead, I watched her, my brow creasing. My heart shuddered with sudden, inexplicable emotion. Reiko looked so grimly determined that I almost wished she were a heroine in a fairy story. Then she might have had a chance at a happy ending.